Welcome back to D&D Beyond. If you have been following the wonderful stories being told by our friends over at Dimension 20, you know about the recently concluded mini-series Regency-inspired A Court of Fae and Flowers, DM'd by Abria Iyengar. This Feywild-based adventure told a tale of intrigue, enchantment, and danger, or in other words, put the bow in crossbow. Here today to share a look at their D&D character sheet for Fae and Flowers and answer some of your questions, please welcome performer, artist, Radiant Citadel writer, and Arcane Trickster, Surena Marie. How you doing today?
Hi. Oh, so good. It's so good to see you, Amy.
It's lovely to see you. And thank you on behalf of all of us, our audience, our friends, and our social media manager, Avery, who specifically would like to pass on how delighted we were with A Court of Fae and Flowers.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Avery. What's up? Um, yeah, it was such a fun, exciting, and wild show.
We will definitely be getting into some more details about that. And speaking of which, today's stream will contain some spoilers for A Court of Fae and Flowers. So please, if you are intrigued by what you hear, if you're interested but you haven't caught up with the series that recently concluded, go do that thing right now and then join us back here as we dig into all of the secrets, because you're going to let us actually look at your character sheet.
Yeah, I am so excited to share it. It's uh when you make a thing before you start performing the thing and then it becomes different? Yeah. So I can't wait to talk through what I was thinking and also like what actually happened.
I I love that distinction, which I think will be familiar to any of us who've come into a campaign being like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be so hard and cool and
Yeah.
tough. And then you're like, oh, I've got a marshmallow center.
Oh no, I'm so soft. I really like people.
So let's get right into it. Let's take a quick tour overall, and then we'll start diving in on features. So in this campaign, we have a level 9 Changeling Rogue.
Mhm.
We have a rogue, not just a general rogue, but an arcane trickster
Mhm.
for a subclass. You can see a look. This is a campaign with a lot of social elements, so we've got some handy expertise in persuasion, in deception, in sleight of hand.
Mhm.
We have some interesting things down here in the tool uh, proficiencies. We have some spells that I'll want to hear about, which ones were musts and why. And all of it adds up to one-ish interesting persona. So first things first, spoilers for the show. There are two names on this sheet. Can you tell us who we're looking at?
Yeah, we're looking at one Gwyndolin Thistle-hop, a member of the Court of Wonder, uh, and one Binks Chopley, who is the true identity of my character, the sole member of the Court of Craft, a court that was kind of extinguished or frozen by the Court of Wonder. And so when we were originally putting together our stats and our characters and all of that stuff, and had our session zero, Abria was very adamant on these characters, like you are your own main character and we're all gonna like mess with each other, or there's gonna be some PvP stuff. And I've never played a PvP game in my life, and I still kind of don't think I did this. Um, but when I was creating and like choosing my stats, I knew that I wanted to play a changeling because I knew I wanted to have the dual identities, but it was important to me that my persuasion and my deception were the same score. And because if you remember in the early episodes when everyone thought that Gwyndolin was so shady, like a super spy, I was genuinely rolling persuasion and not deception because I was telling the truth.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I was like, believe me, like the whole time.
Oh my gosh. Deceiving folks as to whether you are deceiving them by making sure the math works out and coordinating with your DM is an
Mhm.
incredible play approach to a social character. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is wild to see kind of how, that kind of played out because I a lot of the characters that I've made and played are have been, like, lower level characters, like, I've, done a level 3, I've done a level 5 character, but I think level 9 at the time was the highest, like, level I've ever been in D&D 2. And so I was genuinely, like, tickled with, like, how many things I got to, like, choose and select from, and I I just kinda dumped it all in, like, charisma and dexterity. Like, my constitution is not great. I probably have severe seasonal allergies and, am, a little, not super sturdy. Um but yeah, that's kinda what I had going on when I was selecting all of the things to start.
So yes,
Uh
we're looking at ability scores right now, and for folks watching this either right now on Twitch or later on YouTube, there is a link to Serena's character sheet. We have a copy that we are able to share out. Thank you so much, so that you can poke around and look at some of the choices that went in here. And as you can see, we got a 10 for Constitution. It's average. It's fine.
it's
Um,
fine.
but you've got 18s for Charisma and Dexterity, which is a fabulous setup for a rogue who needs to do a lot of social stuff to go forward with. So that's
Mhm.
excellent. One of my first questions was going to be which came first, Changeling or Arcane Trickster. It sounds like Changeling.
Changeling, yeah, it was important, and it's interesting to me because we all made our characters separately, so there was we all had no clue on, like, who everyone was bringing to the table, but I feel like, uh, myself, Brennan, Oscar, and Omar all played the secret identity, this "I'm not who I say I am" trope, and, that's, my whole, like, vibe was, like, the duality between, high society and literally everybody else, right? And, like, Regency, you have, like, people who are, like, working and are not main characters, but they're, like, in there, like, in the stories in the background, and that sort of, like, was the inspiration as well as the deeper things on the idea that as we as our proximity to power, like, as people, like, our proximity to power, gets closer, there's a lot of, like, code switching that happens, and there's a lot of things that are supposed to, occur in order for us to be more respectable in our society, which I wanted to mess around with because, like, we were coming into this incredibly genred piece where, like, we were all fancy rich people, right? Uh, and so the proximity to power was so high that the changeling aspect, I wanted to play that proximity on the other side, like as far away from the power as I could.
Which is a brilliant
Mhm,
choice and speaks very much to the fact that anytime we're sitting down for a D&D game, in some measure we are engaging with sort of like we're going to be adventurers, we're going to work with what we think adventurers do, we're going to work
mhm.
against what adventurers do, and the style of story that you're telling gives you fertile ground, no plant pun intended, for the different sorts of things that will be rich in that setting, and
Yeah.
specifically to draw from like pretty much all stories about heavily social sort of social
Mhm.
combat almost scenarios
Yeah.
are very often going to be about the duality between your external presentation and your internal experience, right? Y'all just found a way
Mhm.
to do that, but with rules and some fun extra elements that Bria brought in for Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
um, to bring this to life in a game setting, which I think is brilliant. I am gonna dodge slightly. I was gonna save this for later, but I am curious. As you were picking this out, I see in the description that you ended up picking background criminal spy. But the personality traits, and I know you've said that like a lot of your character creation was done sort of separately and a lot of notes that you exchanged
Mhm.
when you were working on things. But you've got some great personality traits that suggest where you were going with this right off. Bonds, I come from a noble family, and one day I'll reclaim my lands and title from those who stole them from me. But
Mhm.
looking that up, those are from the personality traits table for charlatan.
Yeah. Okay. So, originally, uh, I was gonna come in with this energy that was going to befriend all of the servants, like all of them, and then kind of create this like web of uh people who like are wanting to have this revolution, wanting to reclaim this magic back. And in I think in the first episode, I say that my the name on the invitation was changed to mine. And that's truly because Binks and I would say Gwyn as well, like IRL Gwyn, um, have like these networks of people that they are working with and that they are trusted, especially within the Court of Wonder, which is so big, right? So yeah, that was my idea with it. And then things changed a little bit. I think it's like you're playing this character and you're told you have to play your play your plot, like play your point of view, play your story. Um, but it's fun to find where your like tunnel vision, like with it, like goes to the rest of the table and be like, great, can we pull in like uh Oscar? Can we pull in Omar? Can we pull in how can we end up so that I'm not also just playing with Abria, right? Just playing with an NPC game. I didn't want to do that, but I came in with like pretty I'm going to be a criminal energy.
See, I love that. That's a great and part of what makes backgrounds really fun is that this is something about what you are coming into the game with, but that's what a background is. You could go
Yeah.
any direction from here.
Mhm.
Mhm. And for the record, I think
Yeah.
it's a genius move to have like traits pulled from one set of suggestions and the other because they are just suggestions and it creates new possibilities, which is why I was like, oh, nice move. Um, uh, so, okay, let's talk why Arcane Trickster. Now, for folks who are familiar, this is a rogue, but with a little bit of magic, relying on some of those social skills that some rogues have, and adding a little bit of spell casting. Can you tell us how you landed on that one?
Yeah. So when Abra and I think all of us we were world building and having these discussions, the idea of the bloom being this like surge of magic, it was important to me to play a character that had magic powers, but wasn't like your standard sorcerer warlock. Well, she's a warlock patron, so that's
Which is very cool.
different. But um, I felt like Arcane Trickster was enough stealth and enough magic to be a problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like just to be a little bit of a problem.
Oh, I love that. I like as a goal, especially knowing that you're coming into a thing intended to potentially have some social PvP elements. Be a
Mhm.
little bit of a problem is a great guiding principle. Is there a specific feature from your Arcane Trickster toolkit that you most enjoyed getting to bring to bear?
Um, so I really love I think I casted it. I think the spell I cast the most is Fog Cloud in the game. And I like that spell a lot for Binks specifically because she casts it out of a place of anxiety, out of a place of don't look at me, like Fog Cloud. And I like that that's kind of how she solves her problems, or she did initially, before she found friendship and all of those things. But I also really loved, and it's not part of the Arcane Trickster class specifically, but we had some solid discussions about the lucky feat and how it's as the court of craft, part of it's really like real world magic, and so part of that is lost objects and liminal spaces, but another part of that is fate and luck. And so to be able to make rolls to make things more fated was just a really cool mechanic, and an interesting way of splitting it a little bit from its like on paper purpose.
I love that as a embodiment of that flavor using the very fun Lucky Feet. I've had the Lucky Feet in a few different places, and I like that it can feel different each time, where you're based on like this person's luck looks sort of like, a fun fool stumbling into good things. This person's luck looks more like King Midas, everything I touch turns to gold. Like it feels different in different characters, which
Mhm.
I love.
It's so good. I don't know if it's been said anywhere, but when we were developing our characters, because we're Archfey, Abria told us specifically to have something on our bodies, our physical selves, that works like a wondrous item or a magical item. Um, and I don't know what everybody else's is to this day, but for me, my wings were bags of holding. So I could put things in them and take them out, and I had like the world in my wings, essentially.
You have some
Yeah.
stuff you secretly had on you in your wings. That's beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of there's a lot of knickknacks, a lot of like mortal realm stuff. I think we had our uh, adventuring party, and I went into detail on how I had socks, a bunch of go-gurts, just like warm go-gurts, like knitting tools, crafting tools, also things of value, things of like sentimental value, um, and just like uh objects that hold great importance to people. I think like those are like magical for her. But
Mhm.
again, like garbage things and like trash, like actual trash.
Pockets of meaningful garbage. It's what a beautiful concept.
Mhm.
How did this character surprise you? You've alluded to some of what you sort of came in with a plan and then sitting down at that wonderful table full of fellow liars and aspirants and well-meaning folk. Uh, what were some of the surprises for you along the way?
um, you know, I came in with two goals because I didn't know how the game would work. And I think Brennan in Adventuring Party described it so well when he said that it's like Schrodinger's plot. Like, is it real? Because it didn't happen, so it can't be real. Uh, but in that regard, I had two goals at the top. It was either make the Court of Wonder look really, really bad, and also endear the mortal realm and the material realm to everyone. Um, and so like they understand how wonderful it is. It's like the coolest place ever. Um, or um, oh man, or marry out and revive my court through marriage. Um, and it's interesting because I as soon as I started playing, like, actually starting to play, I was like, "Ooh, like, I don't like that, like, I don't think that she would do that." So I guess it's plan B, and it's to, I don't know, like, talk to people and try to be friends with them, like
See, that's beautiful because I am a big fan of the genre of stories from which this is drawn, and I showed up planning to make a political marriage, but uh-oh, I don't have the heart for it, is actually the plot of some of the best ones. So well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I think in the first episode, or it might have been the first, I like grab like Hob, or I grab Andhira, and then I have the one-on-one with Oscar, which was different. I wanted to actually freak out Oscar, or to freak out Rue, because Rue, they were in the bad court in my mind. Right. And I'm like, I have to be antagonistic to someone. I'll be antagonistic to the most delightful player in the world, the sweet angel,
That must
Oscar
have been so hard.
Montoya. It was at first. But Oscar is such a good improviser. And so I could see like the gears turning in his mind as I was just being a little spooky girl. And it was great. So
Aww.
yeah.
And that's what, the thing we say about role playing games is you play to find out what happens. And sometimes that is how, where you're like, this has a different vibe and I love it. And this is the new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
is there anything that you wish that you had given this character? Or let's say Binks is getting up to level 20. What are some things that you would like, oh, she would definitely do this by then? I would give her, would you
Mm-hmm.
stick Rogue all the way through? Do you see her taking a branch off in another direction?
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense if she took a branch off into artificer, court of
Ah.
craft, making of the things. And I didn't know how hard I would lean into that until we started playing, and I was just delighted by all of the little bits. And so I'm bummed that me as Surena making this character, I don't have mending on my list of spells. And I'm like, I'm only mending right now. Like I'm only making things.
Like the most useful cantrip I don't have.
Yep. So
You've got really killer mage hand. You've got how does
yeah.
one say ledger domain? What is that
Oh
called?
yeah. I think it's Ledgerman.
Yeah, you have like extra super enhanced mage hand, so that
Mm-hmm.
does some things. But
Yeah, it just gives me an extra helping hand when I'm crafting. uh but yeah, I think that would be, if I were to multi-class, that would be sort of the path. But I think Rogue and all of that main way through is their heart, because they prefer like the dark shadowy spaces. They prefer being just right under the radar. Yeah, that's like their comfort place.
love that. I do have one more question about Gwendolyn slash Binks that comes from a ringer that I pulled in. So from one Omar Najam would
Oh
like
my
to know,
gosh. Oh.
what is your favorite lost object that you didn't get to mention on the show?
My favorite lost object, I would say is a locket that Binks found. And I think so Binks has a lot of respect for the previous Weaver of Fate. They were sort of like, to like pop culture reference, like comparison, they're kind of like the great Deku tree in Zelda. So like the quest giver and like the caretaker of like the Kokori people, but like not wandering and making adventures, right? And so Binks has a locket that belonged to a mortal who had passed away, and it was a locket of like their grandfather, and it sort of like mirrors Binks's devotion to her court and devotion to mortals, because mortals care so much in their like 40 years of life, which is but a comma in our world. So yeah, I think that would be my favorite object.
I love that. How did you hit on the idea of lost objects in liminal spaces for this specific character?
Yeah, so I wanted to play something that was really connected to our world. And I think that the closest thing that we have to magic is like lost objects and also forgotten places. So like going to somewhere and it's abandoned, it has this feeling to it that is like an indescribable, like empty void feeling. And that's kind of magical. It's not comforting, but it is like a true magic, I think, that happens in our world. And also the idea of the care that we place into simple objects and finding them, the the upset, the sadness we feel of losing those objects. I think that's the closest thing that we have to actual like magic, true magic. Yeah.
That's an incredible way of looking at that relationship. I was going to ask also how you landed on sort of court of craft, but that it makes perfect sense in light of a form of magic. Was there a little
Mhm.
bit also of just I have seen you make wonderful art. You have amazing cozy vibes in a lot of it. Was there some crossover with court of craft there, or just like a happy coincidence with the definitions of magic?
Uh, a lot of crossover, I think, and sort of thinking about the project I had just finished previously, like before we started character creation and before we started shooting was Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. And the story that I wrote was very it's not a big sprawling adventure with high stakes that's going to be like end of the world you know, adventure that's like really changing stuff. It's like a really intimate story between a family and helping them resolve their interpersonal conflict. And so like that idea of intimacy is something that is definitely a big part of the court of craft, and also like where my brain was, I think, when I was creating Binks. Yeah, so I think that I was kind of in that headspace.
For those who haven't checked out Journeys to the Radiant Citadel yet, it is the wonderful adventure anthology that came out this summer, and Surena Marie has an adventure right at the start of it called Salted Legacy that demonstrates, for me at least, that the world doesn't have to be ending for the outcome to feel very high stakes, and I
Yes.
love that. The range of stories that we can tell. It always matters what happens, but that
Hmm.
doesn't always look exactly the same, which I love very much. Were there any other sort of insights from, well, we'll get into this a little more in the back half, but sort of quickly, were there any sort of big insights you took as maybe a player or a creative from having that adventure writing experience?
Uh, yeah, I think it's sort of how I play a lot of my characters. And I think writing like Journeys to the Radiant Citadel, writing Salted Legacy, it made this instinct stronger. And it's the idea that like everything in game, like you can care about it, like every single thing. And even if it's like, I don't know how my character would feel about this, or maybe my character, or maybe, you know, Binks doesn't really understand this, then like they care about understanding it, or they have decided that they are repulsed by it, or you know, like there's a lot of these like little human things that we can add in our games, especially if you feel stuck, because we were improvising the entire time. Like it's edited down, but our shoot days were really long, and we're uh improvising for, you know, 4-hour sprints. And so you have to be heart forward and just like grab on to people's offerings, essentially, because everything that a player offers you at the table is something you can be like, thank you, I'm going to use it this way now. So yeah.
So keeping an eye out for those gifts from others at the table and letting everything matter are a fantastic piece of advice to take into our own games from this experience. And we are going to continue with some Q&A, so get your questions ready. If you send them through chat with the word question all in caps, they are going to come through for me to take a look at, for us to start lobbing at Surena in a bit. But is there anything else that we might not have looked at on the sheet itself, other than the beautiful decorations you have chosen, by the way, for our build?
This is just for me. This, like, I am only saying this because I want to say it in the world. I picked the spell Enlarge and Reduce because I thought it would be funny to make things really, really big or really, really small. I'd never used it, but like I was always trying to figure out when is the time. And so
ready to deploy the too big, too small abilities.
Yes.
I love that. For folks who aren't familiar, this is a second level transmutation spell that causes the item you can see within range to grow larger or smaller, and I think is a fantastic one to have in your toolkit, especially if you're going to be a trickster.
Right. I mean, I should have made, like, I don't know, I should have used it on like the penguin or like on a salt goblin and make like a human-sized salt goblin. Like I dropped the ball kind of on that. So no one
would know how to feel about a human-sized salt goblin. Are they the same cute but bigger, or does it cancel out? We don't know.
They might be horrifying, like large, right? Like it'd be like, oh, they're so tiny, and then like human size, it's like, oh no,
too much salt goblin.
Too much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are going to continue, but for anyone watching this portion, Surena, where can people find you to follow more of your wonderful work?
Sure. You can find me at Surena X Marie on Twitter, or if you want to hang out with me on Instagram where I post cozy art, you can find me on Instagram at Surena is a bee.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on D&D Beyond.
Bye.